Donald Trump has walked back some of his comments regarding the foreign policy strategy towards Syria. Now, previously he said that he would intervene following allegations that Assad's regime had used chemical weapons. And now he is alleging that he never said that he was gonna attack. And he'll make a decision very soon. So let me give you his most recent tweet on this. He tweeted, "Never said when an attack on Syria would take place, could be very soon or not so soon at all. In any event, the United States under my administration has done a great job of ridding the region of ISIS. Where is our thank you, America?" So.
Like he reads all his mail.
Yeah, this is, please stop tweeting. Just stop tweeting. Walk away from your phone or whatever you use to tweet. This is such a bad idea.
This story, this sort of type of headline, this assessment that I'm about to make could be made every day. But I mean, a president of the United States said, never said when an attack on Syria would take place, could be very soon or not so soon at all. Like,
it's just.
Right, that's, but it's what? How do you, it's just a thing, it's the 19th most interesting thing that happened in Washington today. But he is a unhinged, unbelievably ignorant player on the world stage.
And wavers on pretty much everything, goes back and forth. It really depends on who he's talking to on any given day.
And the last person with whom he spoke.
Right.
And the other thing is he has nobody, he lives now in a room with people who he doesn't trust anymore. So he's got these new people there. There's no confidant there. There's no Bannon who he can, even if he disagrees with and doesn't like, that makes sense to me. There's nothing there. And John Kelly has been so marginalized there. There's nothing. I mean, he's just there with his phone, and that's
his phone and the remote.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm having this reaction to this tweet is not because I think we need military action in Syria. Don't misinterpret. I'm concerned because he changes his mind day by day and shares it very publicly on his Twitter account, which I think, it just kind of destabilizes the situation even further. And reporters did speak to him today, and he commented on this a little further, so I wanna go to that video. Let's take a look.
We're looking very, very seriously, very closely at that whole situation, and we'll see what happens, folks. We'll see what happens. It's too bad that the world puts us in a position like that, but as I said this morning, we've done a great job with ISIS. We have just absolutely decimated ISIS, but now we have to make some further decisions, so they'll be made fairly soon. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
So it's clear there that he, is walking back the comments a little bit. These are the comments that he made on Wednesday, by the way, which were much more hawkish towards Syria and Assad's regime. Trump announced Wednesday that he intended to launch a missile strike against the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad, retaliation for the government's alleged use of chemical weapons on a civilian population in the suburb of Damascus. And of course, here is the notorious tweet that he had put out earlier. Russia vows to shoot down any and all missiles fired at Syria. Get ready, Russia, because they will be coming. Nice and new and smart. I don't know why smart is in quotation marks. It just doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't be partners with a gas-killing animal who kills people, who kills his people and enjoys it. Now, I want to be clear about something. So far, there has been no concrete evidence linking the chemical attack to Assad's regime. The United States is now claiming that they tested the urine and blood of some of the victims, and that the tests were positive for chlorine and in some cases sarin as well. But again, there is no concrete evidence tying it to Assad. And even Mattis has said that he wants to be careful in regard to their strategy moving forward with Syria because they don't have that evidence yet. Macron, the leader of France, says that he does have evidence linking it to Bashar al-Assad, but I have yet to see that evidence.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're also not hearing a massive degree of retort from either the Defense Department or the CIA here of anyone saying that it isn't Assad. So I mean, I got it. We'd all like to see evidence. We don't. No one thinks that they need to convince the three of us that it was probably Assad because that's what he does, right? And that makes the most sense, unless, right? It's this. So we're thinking that it's this sophisticated ploy to get us to attack Syria?
Well, there is an interesting look. On Friday, the Washington Post had this incredible piece regarding Trump and his disagreements with his own generals. So the generals want to remain in Syria. They do not want to pull all the troops out. There are about 2,000 troops in Syria at this moment. Trump, on the other hand, doesn't understand why we're still in Syria. He wants to take some sort of aggressive military action, be very quick about it, and then get out. And his generals disagree with that. So there
because that won't work. Obviously,
of course, his generals disagree.
Well,
yeah, right.
To be fair,
they're generals.
To be fair, the generals want to remain in Syria.
Right.
They believe leaving Syria will destabilize the situation further. And
many Republicans, though, too, on the Armed Services Committee agree, not surprisingly, with the generals. They think it was a foolish thing to even forecast and to actually do at this stage.
Look, I think that for me personally, the biggest concern is escalating military involvement in Syria based on something that we don't have evidence for yet. You see what I'm saying? So I don't want another Iraq where, well, some intelligence indicates that there are weapons of mass destruction, and then people get persuaded that it's a good idea to do a preemptive strike, and then we end up with a mess. Now, Syria is a little different, but again, I'm worried that we don't have the intelligence yet, and people are persuaded that we need to take more military action against Syria.
But here's why I don't like that argument. Because that argument suggests that if we get the intelligence that proves it, we should have a missile strike.
And I don't even necessarily agree with
that. Which I'm
that.
sure you don't necessarily agree with. He's a madman who has no plan, no concept of what's good, bad, no concept of who to listen to, no concept of when the smartest guy in the room has shown up, or the smartest 10 people in the room with a plan on Syria with some idea. By the way, there is no right answer on Syria, as we've learned for all of our collective lives.
But by the way, we're doing very good on ISIS.
We are doing very good on ISIS. Where's our thank you, America?
Yeah, thanks.
I'm sorry. Where's our thank you, America? I mean, I want it, like Dr. Gary Penn, my therapist. I'd like him to spend some time analyzing Trump. This is really, this is a guy, just a bundle of nerves and defensiveness right off the bat. I love it. So he has no plan, and I don't knock that. Obama didn't have a concrete plan. There is not, although, again, Obama probably shouldn't have said the thing about the red line, but more important than saying the thing about the red line was not launching an attack when the red line got crossed.
That's right.
Trump talks nonsense. I don't think we should worry about the evidence at this point. I just don't mean get in. There's not some ruse being played here. Odds are, and Michael, you step in because you know better. You've been at least covering this or talking about it extensively for I-24. But when does the likelihood that it wasn't Assad is pretty small, right?
It's pretty small.
Right, and of course, I assume we'll look at it. And the oddity here is that we desperately need now both the Defense Department and the CIA, despite the fact that at least the CIA is run by people who we don't trust at all, to at least there are some professionals there who we hope will leak information if there is something suggesting otherwise. So I'm not waiting for something to prove it, because if they're spending the time proving that it was Assad, the only reason they would ever prove it to us is so that they can then justify to launch an attack.
That's a good point, and I don't want to launch an attack, period.
Right.
I don't want to intervene further than what we've already done. I think it's a bad idea. We have not done anything to stabilize any situation in the Middle East in recent
But
decades.
your point, which I agree with, is that even for the crowd that does want to, right, what would warrant it in their eyes is if they knew that these were chemical weapons launched by Bashar al-Assad. And they don't know that yet either. So even if you're going to make that play, which there's unanimity here about disagreeing with it, but the point is, if you're going to have the conversation and someone says, Michael, this is why I think we should launch it, I would want them to say it's because those are chemical weapons that were launched, not because it could be.
There could be chemical weapons used by Assad. Exactly.
Real quick, I know we got to go, but there's massive failure across administrations. There's a massive refugee crisis here. The Syrian people have been largely abandoned to hideous fighting, and the international world, despite some legitimate efforts, has let them down. And
everybody has.
Everybody has let them down.
Maybe Angela Merkel, because she let people in and sort of led on that. But in terms of finding a solution,
right.
Absolutely.
And these are impossible. These are nearly impossible solutions. But we're not even having meaningful talks right now.
We're not. And I think that's the most important takeaway from this, which is the point that you made, Ben, that what we should be the most concerned about is that we are dealing with a president who is not knowledgeable about the nuances of this situation, who can't really make up his mind, who has no real foreign policy strategy, and more importantly, always talks about everything in incredibly vague terms.
Yeah, in defensive terms,
In defensive terms. So that makes me feel uneasy, because regardless of where you stand on Syria and what the foreign policy should be, none of it really matters when you have someone like Trump who changes his mind day to day depending on who he last spoke to.
What you just watched was one of the videos that we do today, but we actually do a whole 2-hour show every single day. It's a podcast. You could watch it in video or listen to it as audio. You can download it, you can stream it, and you get it completely ad-free if you could become a member of the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.